What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of our Mindfulness Minutes. I am Desi Abeda, your registered dietitian and mental health educator. We have had quite the October. One of the biggest things that we find during a lot of the process of just journalism is finding things that we really don't want to know about. Right. The news and journalism is really good at that. So recently, and this is what our big topic today is going to be for our mindfulness minutes. Recently, one of the whistleblowers from Facebook just disclosed a bunch of information about not only how they interact with some of our data, but some of the content that we're receiving. And I wanted to just as a mantra, I wanted for us to get behind the idea that a lot of what we consume from a social media standpoint, it might not be all of our fault. And so, for that reason, let's go ahead and dive into one of the biggest topics that has happened over the past couple of weeks with the Facebook whistleblower. So recently, what was released, and for some of us that might have caught it, but it was a 60-minute story that talked about Frances, and her last name escapes me, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. It's like Hagen or Hagen or whatever that is. But she disclosed a lot of information. One of the things that I wanted to dive into today, and for us to wrap our heads around from the standpoint of how we receive our content, is what's going on with Facebook and what's going on with what they actually broadcast to us from this article. And so this article is actually from the Insider. From this article, Facebook's internal research found that Instagram, one of their platforms that they bought back in 2012 for I think almost a billion or even 2 or 3 billion, contributes to eating disorders and suicidal thoughts in teenage girls, per this whistleblower. And I think this brings up a really valid thing for us to think about and how we consume content is that one, of course, we're responsible for the type of content that we consume, but also making sure that we are aware of what's going on in our young teenagers' lives and what has been going on, especially for the millennial and Gen X generation or Gen Z generations. We've grown up with social media, and so these are images, these are messages that a lot of us have gotten from a very very young age, and for some of us who started in social media. I mean, right now, as I broadcast this, I'm 35. So for me, I started with MySpace. And that's how we started, and it went into Facebook and then it went into Instagram. And these platforms throughout their evolution have changed. And what we're finding here is actually a really great look into what is going on from the standpoint of the data that they're collecting and what they are actually influencing with a lot of our younger teens. According to the internal study, and I kind of want to read you verbatim what was sent in this article. According to internal studies retrieved by Hagen, Facebook found that 13.5% of teen girls say Instagram makes thoughts of suicide worse, and 17% of teen girls say Instagram makes eating disorders worse as well. Which, as a dietitian, I can absolutely talk about the validity of something like this because I can't tell you how many times I've sat in a room or now just with what going on recently, I've sat over a Zoom call with both males and females that have talked about the rigors of comparison syndrome, the rigors of what they see on social media. Because I mean, how many of us can raise our hands here and say that most likely anything that we've posted on social media has oftentimes been the highlight reel? And that's usually what we continually compare ourselves with. So as this came out, here is Facebook's response. It is not accurate that leaked internal research demonstrates Instagram as toxic, quote unquote, toxic for teen girls. The research actually demonstrated that many teens we heard from feel that using Instagram helps. Yeesh. I don't know if that is a factual statement, especially considering not only just as a dietitian and a mental health educator, not only just like talking with others and getting more anecdotal data, but do you think this is really true? I personally do not, because if we look at how often we compare ourselves to others, I think social media is a really, really effective tool at not only helping you to navigate information and connecting with others, but at the same time, it can be used for ill purposes. And I think with a lot of us, we can raise our hands and say that. I mean, how many of us at some point in our lives had said, I don't know if social media is the best thing for me? Right? Or who have said, I've had to get rid of my social media for a little while. I just needed a break. A lot of people have said that. And I think this is extremely important for us to talk about because here's the thing: we are responsible for what we consume, right? We are responsible for the follows that we give. We're responsible for the likes. We are responsible for our feed because there we can take radical responsibility behind not only the type of content that we are consuming, but also the type of people that we are connecting with and also comparing ourselves with. And this is something that is relative to all ages. We can all get behind the idea that we get caught in comparison syndrome when we compare ourselves to people on social media. We compare our bodies, our lifestyles, our money, like whatever that is. We've all been doing that. And I'll raise my hand too to this end. Because here's the thing, and as a dietitian, a lot of people kind of give me a side eye when I say this, but the only detox that I want you to ever do is to detox those friendships, those relationships, and those socials that are no longer serving you. And so this might mean an unfollow. This might mean for you to protect your peace by setting some healthy boundaries around how much you engage on Facebook or how much you engage on Instagram or even TikTok or Snapchat, whatever that is for you, is setting some healthy boundaries around not only the time, but also the quality of content. So unfollowing, like I said, people that really don't fit your needs, that really don't fit the values that you yourself are really proud of. And this is why this is extremely relative too, because as even as we dive into the story, and I'm going to encourage you to spend some time reading through it a little bit more, because as a clinician and as a mental health educator, these are things that I'm seeing all the time. I can't tell you how often it's really hard to walk someone through that comparison syndrome and really hard to help them to take radical responsibility about with their behaviors and to take responsibility of their healing journey. And that oftentimes means that they're going to have to be extremely careful with the type of information that they engage in. And then even just with the next generation, with our young teenagers, right? So a lot of us have family members like that. It's trying to help them to navigate their own social atmosphere in the social media era. And so for us, by taking radical responsibility behind the type of content that we engage in and having conversations around comparison syndrome, this is when we can all be healthy together. All right. So I hope this resonates with you. I felt like it was an extremely important topic to discuss because to some end, a lot of us are engaged in social media. And for most of us, we're engaged in a way that is not serving us. So something to think about for your mindfulness minutes today. Bye.